気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどんどん
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 23 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J. With me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well, Matt. We're nearing the end of the first quarter of the academic year, which means I am now fielding a bunch of emails from kids who haven't done anything for 9 weeks, and then I'll be like, how do I get my grade up? And my answer is, you have to learn some stuff.
Have you found that with this quarter of like everyone doing things remotely, that the percentage of students who have just like completely not engaged with your classes is higher?
You know, I think you would have, I would have guessed that that was going to be the case, and my experience is that it is actually not.
Yeah.
It is, as a percentage, it is the exact same number of kids.
It might be. I think we've talked about this. How like there are probably different students who like have moved from one side of that equation to the other based on the circumstances.
Yeah,
but it's still
I think
about
that
the same
is
number.
Precisely. I think that is definitely true. But as far as just like raw numbers go, you know, even when we are in the building, I have, depending on the class, obviously. But you know, there's always. It's sadly high, to be honest. There's just like a number of kids who are like, they will just sit there and like they don't even make trouble. I mean, some of them do make trouble. But weirdly, the kids who make trouble oftentimes also do work.
They're just generally engaged.
Yeah, they're like engaged on some level. Like you may have to hound them, but they will eventually do stuff. Whereas, and what sorry, real quickly, I do need to divert, Matt, because I'm talking about doing work. And when I say doing work, I mean going through the practice and exercises to teach you the skills that I'm trying to teach you. It's not just work.
Right.
I just want to put that out there, that I am not the sort of teacher who's like, I gave you 13 works and you only did 10 works, and so you gotta be like, that's not where I'm at. I'm actually really invested in something called standards-based grading. You can look it up. It's great stuff. Anyways, none of that is the point. I am just fielding a bunch of emails right now. How are you? I mean, not right now, because right now I'm doing the show.
Yeah, that would be very rude to me and our listeners.
Yeah, that would be. And I don't do... My work is really weird this year because I think we talked about this, I'm doing way more work in a sense, but because I am working from home, you know, like I set like a really hard cutoff. Like I don't do anything after like work hours. Like I don't check my email, like nothing. And so obviously I'm not doing that right now, but earlier today.
Cool. Oh, thanks for the update.
For a given value, sure.
Yeah, but you know what definitely is cool, Dave? Is episode 23 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called... Title...
I feel like you should have looked this up ahead of time.
Definitely should have. Thought I did.
Yeah, now...
Actually did, and then didn't write it down.
So we're doing a video call, and I like it, but the only downside of a video call is that I do find myself reacting in visual ways to things that you're saying, which is fine for us, but this show is a purely auditory medium.
Right, we are not recording this video call.
If I'm not looking at you, if I'm looking at you, if I'm not looking at you, I remember to verbalize all of the stuff that I'm sort of processing. But if I am looking at a picture of you, I'll just like point at you, and that doesn't do anything for the audio.
What we need to do, Dave, is we need to start recording the video and have that be part of our special Patreon content, so that people can get the visual cues.
So there's a few steps. You've jumped ahead a few steps. The first step is that we would need to have a Patreon.
Well, sure, but listen. We can deal with all that behind the scenes. Dave, today's episode is called Why My Egg is a Nezire Beast. And the title is a spoiler, but it's only a spoiler to Kenta because Kenta is an idiot.
Yes. Yeah, that is.
But that's talking about the episode, which we're not doing yet, Dave, because first, as always, Dave, Shining in the Heavens, there are 5 stars. It's our officially award-winning opening segment. Dave, what's our first star of the week?
So, Matt, our first star of the week is this episode is actually a pretty big milestone.
Yeah, episode 23 of Denji Sentai Megaranger.
Of Megaranger, yeah. It is that. That's certainly true. And it is wild that we are in... we talk about this every year. But, like, it feels like you go through... Okay. You know how as you get older, you go through years more quickly and more quickly?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like seasons of Super Sentai are the same way.
Well, you know, what's...
Like, the first season of Ranger seemed like it went for so long. And now that we're into season 6 of this show... 5?
6.
6. Now that we're into season 6 of this show, it does feel like the series go by way faster.
Well, you know,
but
Dave,
that's not actually the...
Yeah, that I think is why we miss more episodes now than we used to, because we're just trying to drag out the feeling. It feels like it's going so much more faster, so we need to just periodically pump those brakes.
Anyways, but the actual milestone of this episode, this is the 300th episode.
Yes.
Of the Super Sentai Brothers, Matt.
Well, it is... Okay, so... This is a point of clarification that matters to literally no one but me. It is the 300th...
And I think it matters probably to Mark and Brian.
Sure. This is the 300th episode of the Super Sentai Brothers as a podcast experience. It is not the 300th episode of the show that we do every week. Which is to say that we are now 23 episodes into the 6th season, and we have done every episode of those shows up to this point. But there are other things that happen in this feed, and those things have also added up to the total of 300. So that's like when Mark and Brian come in and they do the Spider-Man Who Loved Me, or when Mark and I have done You Only Live Man twice, or when Mark and his daughter Ivy have done... Oh gosh, what was that one called? It was really good.
Oh man, I don't know. It's no. Don't bring it back to anybody's memory. It was like 1,000 times more charming than anything we've ever done. And if we want to maintain an audience, we can't remind people that it exists.
And it also includes our special episodes, like when we did the catch-up episodes to fill out the Creature Royale when we started that segment up.
Yeah, okay.
And it includes...
it's 3... Okay, yes, Matt. It includes a number of
Dave,
things.
I'm just taking a walk down memory lane here.
You're tarnishing. You're tarnishing.
No,
is what
Dave,
you're doing,
I'm
taking a walk down tarnish lane.
I'm celebrating the full catalog is what I'm doing. Would you want someone to forget about Ringu Ranger?
Okay, that is my personal most listened to episode.
The one that you have gone back and listened to?
The man is waiting, you've got to jump into action. Power bombs, drop kicks, and Drago Fighters faction. Quake, tsunami, hurricane, typhoon, and lightning. Shake the earth and tear the sky. Evil's on the ropes, you guys. Ringu Rangers wins!
Yeah, I do periodically go back and listen to it, and it's some of our better work. It does hold up, I think.
It is. One that I have gone back and listened to all the way through, which I very rarely do these days. Initially, I listened to basically all of them all the way through just to kind of wrap my head around it and enjoy the experience. One that I did go back and listen all the way through was... I weirdly don't even remember which episode it was. It was like episode 34 of Kaku Ranger, I want to say. But it's the one...
Okay.
It's the one where, we couldn't find a time where you had an hour free to do the show.
Oh, and you...
And I did both... I just did the whole show pretending to be a conversation between me and you.
That was a pretty spectacular piece of work on your part, Matt.
Thank you. I think ultimately, I think it might have been stronger in concept than it was in execution, but the concept, the theory,
really
the
great.
theory was sound, as As Val Kilmer once said in the lion hunting movie, The Ghost and the Darkness. Everybody knows that reference, right? Val Kilmer in The Ghost in the Darkness, where he traps lions in Africa to clear out a mine or something.
So anyways, I feel very proud of us, Matt. I do. Every time we hit one of these milestones, I remember back when we first started doing the show, and we got to episode 10, and we were like, oh my gosh, we did 10 whole episodes of this thing and stuck with it. And then we finished one season, and I feel like we didn't maybe necessarily properly celebrate when we did 5 full seasons of this show, but this is pretty close.
Yeah.
So it's been a blast, Matt, and thank you guys. For the people who listen, it's a blast. It's really cool to make something and put it out into the universe, and know that it hopefully improves somebody's life in some small, fun way. What, Matt, is our second star of the week?
Dave, our second star of the week is, and it's been a while since we've done one of these. Dave, I got a commute update.
What? Commute update.
Yeah. So, okay. Last Wednesday drove to work for the first time since March 11th.
Yeah, that is wild. Wait, so why were you in the office?
Okay, so basically, weather is getting bad here in Cleveland, Ohio. And we were sort of just on the cusp of the weather turning against us, sort of for good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it had been a very long time since the people on our team had all seen each other. And we had hired a new guy who hadn't actually met most of the team in person ever.
Yeah, I guess that would be a little bit weird.
So we planned to get together because at the office, they it's a hashtag fun office. They've got a little outdoor patio area with some tables where you can eat. And we were before the weather turns, we should have an outdoor get together, hang out, order some food in, have a team lunch, so that we can actually see each other and break up the monotony of working from home every day in a way that doesn't involve us all sitting around inside the building.
That's great.
So we did that, and it was really nice. It was great to see everybody. I stopped up at my desk. I put on my mask and I went into the office, and there was nobody there. Right. There's 10 people in the whole building that normally has 325 or something. And so I'm just wandering through the office, and it's a total ghost town at noon on Wednesday noon, which normally, of course, full of people.
Yeah.
So that was weird. And then I got to my desk, and my calendar still said March, so that was weird.
Oh, that seems very upsetting.
I had to
That seems very bad. I'm not sure why.
I had to flip through every month real quick just to see what Golden Age DC comic book covers I'd missed out on seeing.
You know why, Matt? Okay, here's why that's bad. Here's why I don't like that. It's because that's a movie scene. That's a scene from a movie. That's an establishing shot in the post-apocalypse version where somebody wanders through and you see a calendar, and that is that lets you know how long it's been. Right. And I think I can see the scene. I can see you in the scene in the movie, and I don't like. Listen, I'm not willing to give in on the post-apocalyptic until at least November the 4th.
Oh, your birthday.
Which is my birthday. It is. My birthday is the day after Election Day this year. So
if you want to get Dave something nice for his birthday.
So don't let me down, America. Anyway,
so I picked up a couple of stuff from the office. I grabbed my New York Times day-by-day crossword puzzle calendar, which means I got a lot to catch up on.
Are these just very small crosswords?
Yeah, they're the size of a day-by-day calendar, which is basically the size that they are in the newspaper.
Oh yeah, good point. Good point.
Other than like the Sunday, they're like the daily sized. But also, and I think this is most important, I did bring my lava lamp home.
Oh yeah, you've got a. I'm actually a little bit surprised that you didn't go in for that earlier.
Well, you know.
You're a lava lamp guy.
Not only am I a lava lamp guy, I have kind of always been a lava lamp guy.
You're historically a lava lamp guy.
I bought a lava lamp for myself in, like, junior high.
I thought you got it as a present, but you did definitely have one.
Was it a present? I forget. I know I bought the strobe light that I had in, like, junior high school. Which I've still got around somewhere.
I've got an old black light from Grandpa.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I brought it home and I set it up on the bar. So now I've got, like, a lava lamp next to a decanter of gin and a decanter of apple brandy. And, like, all my, like, tools and mix-ins. It's a good look,
man,
I tell
that
you.
feels. I was gonna say that feels strong. That feels like a real good space to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to shake it up a little bit. Anyway, Dave, what is our third star of the week?
Third star of the week, Matt, is I made a very good stew.
Ooh, I love a stew. Tis the
I know.
season.
It is. That's why I did it. We got a grocery delivery, and it's kind of like a surprise box a little bit. So I opened the box, and there's like a bunch of parsnips, which I love, and carrots and some potatoes. And I said, and I actually already had some stew meat thought out, and I said to myself, this is, the universe has provided.
Okay, Dave, real quick.
In the form.
I do have and I hate to interrupt, but I have a question. I was listening to another podcast today that referenced stew meat. Mm-hmm. And I know what the idea of stew meat is, which is just like general meat that you put in a stew. But like, what is stew meat? Like, it's not a cut, right? Is it just like a bag of scraps?
I think it's basically just a bag of offcuts.
Okay.
Which is, whatever. When you buy hamburger, you're almost always getting just offcuts that have just been ground up. So that's fine.
Sure.
So anyways,
so it's just
I made
unground
a stew.
hamburger.
Yeah, effectively. So I said to myself, I was like, I really want stew. I've never made what I think of as stew. I make soup, not stew.
Very different.
So I said, very different. And I braise things, still not the same. So I grabbed Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking. Here's the difference, Matt. Are you ready?
I am ready, I think.
Yeah. So here's what you do. What you think of, I am assuming what you think of as stew is the same thing that I think of as stew. Here's kind of what you do. You do your meat and aromatics, and then you braise that for a while. Okay.
Okay.
You braise that for a while in the stock. Then you put in your veg. This is kind of how I did it. You put in your root veg with the stock, and then you kind of cook all of that.
Okay.
And then you drain the stock.
Okay.
All right? Then you drain the stock so you've just got the dry stuff. Then you make a roux.
All right.
And and then I basically made kind of like a low grade like sauce veloute.
Okay.
Which is just stock thickened with roux. Mm-hmm. Stick it with a blonde roux and some like tomato paste and stuff. And then you let that cook and thicken, and then you put that on the stew, and you mix everything together, and then you kind of put it back on the stove for a few minutes to let it like bubble and that's how you get like stew, which is like kind of between soup and a thing. That's the difference.
Okay.
And I made it.
Sounds great.
It slapped. It was real good. Yeah, it was amazing. I made what I thought was going to be enough for today and some leftovers for tomorrow, and we just demolished the whole thing. It's very tasty.
I gotta get better at making a roux. I have made a roux successfully.
Super easy, dog.
I know. It's just one of those
roux is
things
super
where
easy.
it's. I feel like it's one of those things you kind of got to do a handful of times so you don't so it doesn't kind of get away from you.
Yeah, well, I should say a blonde roux is super easy. As soon as you start cooking it down, then it gets very difficult because you've really got to my understanding is, I've never tried, you've really got to watch it super closely because the line between good and burned is a very thin. Anyways, I made a killer stew and it was real good, and I was happy to eat it. That's it, man. This stew. Well, I already said it slapped, but it did, Matt.
Cool.
What is our 4th star of the week?
Dude, 4th star of the week is I've been playing a video game.
No kidding.
Yeah. Well, spend a lot of time at home these days. I did go to the office that one time, but I'm not making a habit out of it just yet. Also went out and voted. That was another thing I did this week.
I gotta do my early voting. I mean, I'm registered and everything, but
yeah, it did not end up taking that long. Although I did go on a day where I thought it was just going to be cloudy, and so I didn't bring an umbrella. And as it turns out, I stood in the rain for a while. But it was heartening to see. It was heartening that there were that many people willing to stand in the rain to go vote on a Monday afternoon.
Oh, dude, it is absolutely demolishing every single early voting record.
Yeah,
nothing's even close. It's pretty wild.
So that was cool. But anyway, I'm playing Hades.
There's been a lot of talk on the listserv about this.
There's been a lot of talk.
I'm not playing
a lot of chatter. Well, the thing is that it's on Steam and it's on the Switch, but I do not believe it is available on either the Xbox nor the PlayStation. Anyway, it's really cool. It's like a what's that? Like that sort of third-person isometric view camera angle.
Yeah. That's the word you're looking for.
It's a roguelike, which is
I love a good roguelike.
I like a good roguelike. I don't always love a good roguelike. I have tried a number of times and bounced off of Spelunky. I did play Dead Cells, which I liked, but once I finished a run of Dead Cells, I was like, okay, I'm glad that I played that, and now I am done. The thing about Hades that makes it very cool, and I apologize because I have listened, a lot of people are playing this game right now, and I've heard people talk about it on other podcasts, and so it is possible that all of the things I'm about to say are things that I have accidentally stolen from other podcasts. So if you also listen to those podcasts and things that sound familiar, that is why. Anyway, it is really good because the nature of the game is you play as Zagreus, Hades' son, and you are trying to escape Hades. And so you are starting in Hades' court, and you just grab a weapon and you head out into the underworld and are trying to fight your way up through the levels of the underworld to get to the surface, right? And as you do this, you die, and when you die, because you're in Hades, you just you just drop back down into Hades' court, because that's where everyone goes when they die. But it happens to be your house. So you
that's
go
a
through
really great hook.
You go through and you're trying to fight, and then some skeleton thing throws a bomb at you and you die and you show back up. But what's really good about the game is that it has a moderately sized cast of characters, but since it's a game that operates on a loop like this, you're just running into the same characters all the time, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which means they didn't need to have a lot of voice actors, but there are a lot of different conversations that you can have. Basically, anytime you encounter anybody, you have a brief conversation with them, a couple, 1 or 2 back and forths.
Nice.
But it's different every time. And it is and what they talk about,
that's a nice detail.
And they reflect the things that you have been doing. So when you come down into, when you first get back home after dying, the first person who you run into is Hypnos, who's standing there, and he has a list of everyone who died and how they died, because he's helping Hades manage his paperwork. And so he says oh, I see you got killed by the Bone Hydra. That must have sucked. Seemed very painful. Anyway, good luck next time. And then you go over and you talk to Hades, and Hades is you're so stupid. You're never going to get out of here. I hate you so much. And then Zagreus is yeah, whatever, Dad. And then you go talk to Achilles, who is dead and in the underworld. And there's a whole... Anyway, it's just really good. And also, as you the thing that sort of changes how each run works is when you get through each room, you get a bonus.
Okay.
And the bonus is either money or experience points or a boon that you can get from one of the Olympian gods.
I dig anything with a boon.
Yeah, and so like these boons give you different superpowers. And the different
As a general.
And the different like superpowers affect how the playstyle of that run through works. So it's like, oh, like this one changes your regular attack to this other thing, and this one changes your special attack to a different thing, and this one affects the way that you dash in this other way. And so by the time you've gone through a run for a while, you have compiled this like weird hodgepodge of superpowers that you've kind of figured out how they do or do not work together nicely.
No, I think that's a really cool mechanic. Dead Cells, as you continue, I know you just did the one run, but of course you can continue to do it. And it's very much the same way. You're advancing, like, you're collecting, like, more and more, like, weird advanced powers, and you're just sort of jamming them together and kind of trying to figure out something that works. And sometimes you get a combo that's, like, an amazing winner, and sometimes you're like, well, that blows, and you just kind of die very quickly.
Yeah. I think Hades, if you liked that in Dead Cells, I think that if you ever have the opportunity, you would really like Hades, because it does that same sort of thing, but just with a lot more variables. And in a way that is very charming. Anyway, yeah, so that's Hades. Very fun game.
Well, it sounds like a solid recommendation, man. What, Matt, is our 5th star of the week?
Dave, 5th star of the week is something that is potentially very exciting. But the fact that it is only potentially very exciting is making me have a strange week. And it is this. On Sunday of this week, at 9:30 a.m., I went to go look at a house. And then at 8 p.m. on Sunday of this week, the offer that I had put in that afternoon was accepted for to buy this house. It was a heck of a day.
Yeah, that's actually about how quickly it went for us. There was a little bit more negotiating, but yeah, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
So you're basically, I mean, you haven't, Well,
okay, so here's the thing. Here's why it's potentially very exciting, is that, I put in an offer, the offer was accepted, I saw it, I like it, I want to move into it. I mean, not immediately, it is a definite fixer-upper. This is going to be a multi-month project before I can actually move there. Multi-month project, doing a lot of things I don't know how to do yet, but we'll figure it out.
Hey.
No, but the weird thing is, I'm currently in this limbo zone, right? Where all of that is done, but I have not yet had the inspection, and the deal has not closed. So, we have agreed upon what the deal is, right? But,
yes.
If the inspection comes in, it's yes, well, you thought this place was good, but the furnace is full of cursed bats. You're well, okay, I'm not going to, I can't buy
Never
a place
mind.
full of cursed bats.
I can't be dealing with cursed bats.
Or something, I know it's the Halloween season, but a cursed bat, I am out. So, now I'm in this limbo zone of, part of me is trying to get excited about the whole gearing up of this massive project, and the other half of me is dude, you cannot let yourself get that excited, because it is entirely possible that by noon on Friday you will realize that this whole thing has just been a waste of time. So I am just sort of riding this razor's edge of excitement versus nothing. Very strange. It's a weird week, Dave.
Yeah, well, best of luck, Matt. I hope it all works out for you. We did talk about this a little bit beforehand, but, it's exciting. Now, here's the thing. Here's my only piece of advice about having bought a fixer-upper. It's very cool to get a fixer-upper because it's kind of a blank canvas. You could do a lot of stuff with it. You just got to be careful not to octopus the house.
Yeah, you can't go full octopus.
We talked about this. You can't go full octopus. You do need to show some restraint, cephalopod-wise,
right,
is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Too much raw wood and tentacles. You don't want to make your house look that much like a shipwreck.
Yeah.
Even a very stylish shipwreck.
Matt, speaking of terrors from the deep.
Ooh, very nice transition, Dave.
Thank you. It just came to me.
Speaking of terrors of the deep, we are going to take a break. We are going to watch episode 23 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called Escape, the Labyrinth of Evil. It was written by, this is a name I don't think we've seen before, Shigeru Yanagawa. Its original air date was July 27th, 1997. Of course, if you want to watch along, you can do so with either the DVDs or at shoutfactory.tv. Big recommend. Weird episode, but strong ending. And we are going to get back to talk about it right after this.
Kind of a wild one, Matt. So, before we begin this episode, just as a plot, I want to get how to say, this plot hinges on one very, very, just extraordinarily specific thing, and it's that Kenta is a moron.
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of moments in this episode where I'm going to be tempted to say, why does this happen? This doesn't make any sense. And I'm saying this up front so I can kind of remind myself that I don't need to ask the question every time. The question is implicit, and the answer is always, Kenta is a moron.
Yes.
Now, I will say, Chisato, normally very bright, very capable, in this episode, also seemingly kind of a moron.
Yeah, and also a real enabler.
Yes. Not a great... I mean, somebody has to do it, I suppose. It feels like Miku would have been the better pick for this. That's kind of more along her character arc.
You know, it does, but I think I actually kind of... We'll get to it, but I think I actually kind of appreciate that they didn't have it be Miku, just because it would have been so easy for it to be
Would have been
Miku.
a little heavy.
Yeah, like a little on the nose.
I dig it. I'm into it. It's a good point. Okay, so this episode opens up. Kenta is on a bike. He's late. He's in a rush. He glances up at something, glances back down, and the basket on the front of his bike has a weird alien egg in it. From nowhere.
It is just it flew through the air and landed in his bike basket.
Yep. He looks at it and he says, that's weird. Well, I'm already late, and just tosses it away.
Amazing.
And then just moves on.
And this is the moment where there's like a freeze frame as he's doing it, and it brings up like the episode title card. Very good.
Now,
perfect timing.
I just want to say, you said to yourself, the egg flew through the air. Eggs don't have the power of locomotion or aviation. How did that happen? Did somebody throw the egg? There's literally never an explanation. It just possesses the power of telekinetic self-motivation, and it just yeeted itself into the basket. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, now
I'm trying to get
moment.
I'm trying to get yeet in. I like the energy of the word yeet. Normally, I'm opposed to introducing a lot of new slang in like a conscious way, but I think the word yeet is very funny. It's just a funny sounding word, and it's extremely expressive.
No,
I feel like you don't need to explain what yeet means to someone.
See, now, Dave, I like yeet. Don't get me wrong. But my impression has always been that you yeet something out of or away from something, not into or towards something. Am I wrong on that? Is that like a completely imagined distinction?
No, Matt. Well, this is the thing with emergent vocabulary, actually, Matt. It's very interesting. You sort of get a connotative definition first and then a denotative definition. So I think you're actually probably right, but I think it's plastic enough that I can still use it sort of however I want.
Okay, well.
Within certain parameters.
Now that we've covered all our bases
Anyways, what is Kenta late for? It's his dream job, Matt.
He's working at the coffee house.
He's working at the college. It's so exciting. So now when we say working, we mean basically doing he is the entire front of house.
Yes. And part of the back of house, too, because he's also, I think, the busboy and the dishwasher.
Oh, he is. That's right. He is also doing busboy and dishwasher.
He's basically everything but the cook.
Yeah. So he does all of this stuff. There's a quick montage, and then he's wiped out from the day. It does seem as though he's getting money for this job, which is weird. I did genuinely expect that he was going to be paid in special Kalbi.
I mean, I think
Anyways,
we can safely assume that all of his paycheck will go towards special Kalbi.
yeah, you're in a real company store territory there, Mr. Korean barbecue owner.
Yeah.
Anyways,
seems kind of crazy that
he
INET
goes
doesn't
to
pay these kids, right?
It does seem weird.
Like, it's not weird
Because
that the
they-
Die Rangers didn't get paid because they were, like, mythic heroes from, like, ancient lineages. But these are just some high schoolers who have to spend a lot of their time fighting monsters by accident, essentially. They should be on the payroll.
I should work that into the game somehow. Man, I really thought that I was going to have a lot of time. I was just like, the world is locked down. Everyone's stuck in their house. I'll finally
Time
have
enough
time
at
to,
last.
like, really, yeah. And then my glasses cracked in the form of my genuinely amazing and wonderful children. Real quickly, Matt, you ready for this? Are you ready for some heartwarming nonsense?
Maybe.
Yeah, of course you are, Matt. So how we do bedtime is I don't mind, like, doing, like, pajamas and stories and all of that stuff, but I really don't like to just kind of sit there and wait for the kids to fall asleep. Like, just sit there with them as they fall asleep. My wife is
really
the
boring.
opposite. This is an excellent division of labor. So I handle, like, pajamas and stories, and then I bounce, and then she just sort of sits there with them. However, there have been a number of times, quite a few times actually, over the course of the last month, where Buddy Bear, like, pajamas, diapers, bedtime diapers, they're like potty trained, but overnight.
Sure.
Stories, they're in bed. My wife comes in, she sits down, and he says, I want to do an all-together bedtime. And I say, well, come on. Like, I read stories, and Mom's going to sit with you. And he says, I want to do Because I Am Your Son. And I love you no matter what. And I was like, well, okay, then I'll
fine.
just,
We'll do the whole thing.
Like, yes, of course, I'm going to sit down. Of course. No question. Absolutely. Because you are my son and I do love you forever. And it just gets
Very
me every
good.
time,
Extremely
man. Like,
good.
he just knows, tactical strike. Anyways, so he leaves work for the day. He gets on his bike. The egg is back. How is the egg back, Matt? How is it back?
Dave, okay, at this point in the episode, I am not bothered by the fact that the egg is back. Because, obviously, when the egg arrived the first time, it was arriving because it was a trap that was being thrown at Kenta and then he was falling into because he was an idiot. And he threw the egg away, and now the egg is back because, obviously, whoever was doing the initial trap still wants to trap him and is just, doing it again and hoping that it works this time. And then it does work, and I think, okay, well, Kenta has fallen into the trap. Now, here is the hitch. At no point for the rest of this episode is it ever made clear that this was a trap. It was just a complete accident that happened twice in one day.
Yeah, it is. I wanted everything to hinge on Kenta being a moron, because that would have been very neat and is consistent with the story so far. How the egg gets in the basket, I will leave to better men. Anyways, he's like, I think I gotta keep this egg and probably hatch it. I am curious. This egg is like the size of a football, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I wonder what kind of egg it is. So the next scene is him at a library. He's got a lot of books. They're books on, like, birds. Ornithology is the word I'm looking for. And he's kind of flipping through all the eggs. And Chisato comes in, and she's like,
What are you doing in a
do you
library?
have a fever? Are you okay? And he's like, shut up. I know how to read books.
He's like, I'm trying to figure out the thing with this egg. And she's like, you have an egg. Why do you have an egg? And he shows her the egg. She's like, well, you certainly have an egg. Now, here is a weird thing about that egg. Definitely looks like an alien egg. You should just give it to our, space scientist team that we hang out with all the time. Just give it to INET. They'll figure it out.
obviously that is what you should do.
She doesn't say this is clearly a Nezire because those are the only aliens we have ever encountered. But she could easily say that. It would be true.
She could have. And he's like... he's like, that's why I didn't want to tell you. What? Why? Why is that why? Because you thought she would recognize that it's a Nezire egg, which you are clearly in denial about, and you don't want to be confronted about it? Is that why, Kenta? Anyways, he does flip through the book, and like any good ornithology book does, it includes some information on dinosaurs, and he sees some dinosaur eggs, and he says, boom, baby, like, this is it.
Those are big eggs that I don't recognize. This is a big egg that I don't recognize. They must be the same egg. Now, I do got to say, Dave, I know you've never watched Zyuranger, and frankly, we're probably never going to watch it for the show, for reasons I think we've discussed, because every time we've tried to record an episode about Zyuranger, it has gone terribly awry. Also, everybody else has already talked about Zyuranger.
Yeah.
But there's a big plot point in Zyuranger about dinosaur eggs. So I know exactly what, like, the 1990s Sentai prop team does to make dinosaur eggs, and it is nothing like what this thing is. This is so clearly an alien egg. It's like pink. It's black and hot pink.
Yeah. Now, I will say, Matt, I know you also have not watched The Good Place, which I just finished. It is, Kenta has a very strong Jason energy to me. So if you have watched The Good Place and you haven't watched Megaranger, the vibe is very similar. Anyways, he's like, I'm going to hatch this dinosaur. My name will go down in the history books. Kenta out. We transition from there to the Digital Research Club. Everyone's like, where's Kenta? Shisato explains where Kenta is.
He's trying to hatch a dinosaur egg.
And everyone's like, that's absurd. And Miku's like, it would be cool if he did it, though, right?
Yeah, like, everybody kind of falls along. Like, we have already kind of seen Chisato's reaction to this. But everybody else's reactions are, like, super spot on for their character. Miku is like, but it would be fun, wouldn't it? And Shun is like, Kenta is being an absolute idiot. And Koichiro is like, this is a waste of time. He needs to do some work.
Yeah. So we go from there. We see a greengrocer. And there's like a lady. She's trying to sell some watermelons. And this lady, we find out, is Kenta's mom. And I immediately like her.
I may
just immediately like her because...
so surprised that was his mom. Just because there's never been any indication that any of these characters have families. So to just casually introduce a mom...
Shun's mom is dead.
What's that? Oh, yeah,
Shun's
mom is
dead.
dead. Because Shun is CGI Batman. CGI flautist Batman.
So anyways, I
CGI
immediately like his
Iron
mom.
Fist.
I think maybe I like his mom. I think I like his mom because Kenta seems like he would be a very difficult son to have, and so I just have an immediate sense of, like, commiseration with his poor beleaguered mother.
Mm-hmm. And as he rolls in, she's like, if you have time to be working at a Colby shop, you have time to help me here at the shop that we own and live at.
Yeah.
He is not interested in
like,
having
that's
that conversation.
Cool. Yeah, he just slips by, and he goes into his room where, using like a table and blankets and space heaters, he has constructed an incubator. And he looks at the egg. He looks at the egg, Matt, and the egg starts glowing. Like, visibly, it's pulsating, Matt. It's pulsating like a pod people egg, okay?
Mm-hmm. Has like Chisato showed up at this point
is
yet?
what I'm saying. She's about to show up.
Okay.
But he looks at the glowy pulsating egg, pulsating with light, not physically pulsating, just to clarify. And he's like, come on, bud, hatch.
Come on, dinosaur. You know how dinosaur eggs glow?
You know how dinosaur eggs glow? With a slow strobing light? Kenta.
Again,
Man,
this
I
is a
promised I
man who
wasn't gonna say
sees
it.
an alien every week. He sees one alien
Kenta
at
is-
least every week. He has never seen a dinosaur.
Okay, again, this entire plot hinges on Kenta being a moron. So it's gonna be an anglerfish Nezire. And somehow Chisato shows up. And she's like, "How's it going?" And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to get this egg to hatch."
It's glowing. I made
And
a
then
makeshift
Mom-
incubator underneath this. What's the?
Yeah.
There's a special type of. It's like a low table with like blankets, sort of like built in around it. It's like a specific Japanese thing.
I just assumed you put a blanket on a table. That's neat.
Yeah, I have one in Animal Crossing. Our sister owns one in real life. I just forget what it's called, but like it's a low square table with like a sort of like a blanketed skirt.
You know, man, I would so love to get out to visit Katie in Japan.
Just to
but
figure
I
out what
know
that
it's only
table
a fun.
is.
Just at that table, though. No, I know it's only it's like a maximum of a 5-year contract, and I just am not seeing where at some point between now and 2 years from now it will be practical for me to bring my entire family to Japan.
Yeah, I was gonna
Anyways.
go. I was gonna go to the Olympics this summer. It was gonna be pretty good, Dave. Maybe
It is going to be
maybe next time.
Well, they are they're honoring tickets. They're just transferring the tickets. So Katie had tickets to see something, and then she's got, I don't know if it's going to be the same event, but she will still get to go presumably next year.
Presumably.
If there's yeah.
Although I gotta
So
say,
anyways,
I do have to say, it would be. Listen, there is nothing good about the current pandemic situation, but if this made him put it off for 2 years, and then we got the Olympics and Winter Olympics on the same year again, that would be amazing.
oh, are you a same year advocate?
Oh, I really love having. It's tough, right? Because I like having them more often. Unlike the split.
I'm a split advocate.
But like, I remember when I was a kid, like, you know, the 1 or 2 Olympics I remember as a kid before they split, and it just made like the whole year feel special. It was like once every 4 years.
Does.
And it was also on like a presidential election schedule, which didn't mean as much to me because I was a kid. But it was like there was a presidential election and both Olympics all in the same year. Like once every 4 years was just like this huge thing. And plus, Dave, I guess now it would be off schedule, but can you imagine how much better a presidential election year would be if there was also 2 Olympics to distract you?
Okay, you know what, Matt? You've made your point. I dig it. So anyways, there's a weird little scene where like the mom comes in and she's like, "What's going on in here? This is obviously weird." And Kenta's like, "We're having an endurance contest to see who can be hot the longest."
Yeah, because the
I don't
room is
know.
boiling because he has like a space heater under a table trying to hatch an alien egg.
Yeah.
Anyway, his
so,
mom buys
you
this
know, Matt,
because, I don't know,
would-
maybe she's an idiot too.
Well, okay, Matt, I would say that this is insane, but people in Nordic countries do definitely do competitive saunaing. So, shrug.
Cool. Whatever.
Yeah, I had to verbalize the shrug that I did. Anyways,
See,
so
this
it
is
does
why
hatch.
this is why you gotta subscribe to our Patreon so you can see the shrug.
Yeah. So
Anyway, this alien egg hatches.
This dumb alien egg hatches to this moron superhero, and it is an anglerfish.
It's a little it's a cross between
It's a cross between a
neon
gremlin
pink
from the movie-
anglerfish and a gremlin. Did you say gremlin?
I did, yeah.
No, that's what I was getting towards as well. It's gremlin sized and it's got big ears.
Yeah, and so and you know what? I was angry for a moment because because I saw all of this happening, and I was like, Kenta has made one bad decision after another in this, and guaranteed this is going to work out.
Perfectly.
Like, this will be 100% fine at the end.
Nothing
Now,
has ever gone
he
wrong
does
for
name
this
it-
man.
Yeah, he does name it Gomtang, which is, I looked it up, it's Korean oxtail soup. And
also
the reason
looked
I
it
looked it up is because his first suggestion was kalbi.
Yeah, he was just basically rattling through
He's just
the
naming-
menu of the place at his new job.
Yeah, so he names the thing Gomtang, and Shisanto's like, I think this tiny monster that you've hatched could be dangerous. And Kenta's like, psh, never.
How could my beautiful Gomtang
Now-
be dangerous?
So we go from there to Nezire Dimension.
Yes, where we are immediately confronted with a full-sized, monstrous anglerfish Nezire, which is so clearly related to the one that Kenta is currently cuddling with.
Yes, anglerfish Nezire, it translates. Anglerfish are scary fish to begin with, and so turning it into a monster is not difficult. And we find out that
it's
BBDB
most of the way
made
there
him.
already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. The ocean is equal parts beautiful and fascinating, and also deeply terrifying.
So BBDB made him, and what we are sort of learning here is that when
Which
they
is
make these monsters... I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm sorry. It was the same train of thought, that the implications of the 30 seconds of film we're about to get are staggering.
Yeah, so BBDB makes the anglerfish Nezire. They're like, wow, BBDB, we kind of didn't know you had it in you. Good job, buddy. Because BBDB is just like not a real character. He's just like a floating smiley face with arms and legs.
He's awful.
Anyway, so he's saying, yes, it's anglerfish Nezire. It can turn humans into stone. Which is, whatever, weird. Not as
I'll get back
thematically
to
appropriate as the teleporting trap antlion Nezire. But Gairail walks in. He's like, hey, didn't anglerfish Nezire over here have a brother? And BBDB says, yes, he did. But his brother was not like...
He couldn't be.
Yeah, like he didn't have like the raw traits I needed to turn him into a Nezire monster.
He doesn't say that. He just says he couldn't be a Nezire beast. We're inferring here. So basically what we've got is that there is a race of Neziregians that are all just kind of connected to earth animals for some reason that go through some sort of like horrifying super soldier process to become Nezire beasts.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, Matt. The anglerfish. So there's the anglerfish with the light, which this one does have. But there is another type of anglerfish that just has like a little wiggly lure on its head. Okay. And that fish is also called the stonefish.
Really?
Yeah, because it's got very good camouflage, and it's also extremely poisonous. And so I think they just sort of like mashed together like the glowy anglerfish and like the stone anglerfish, and maybe that's why he can turn things to stone.
Interesting. I had no idea.
That's my guess.
This basically is like an episode of Blue Planet. We're learning so much.
We're learning so much. Well, Matt, I just,
I mean, you're an educator at heart.
teaches like a drinker drinks, Matt.
So, Gairail is like, listen, you have missed an opportunity with anglerfish Nezire's brother.
You boofed it.
Because the two of them can like combine. So, anglerfish Nezire, you go down to Earth and you find your brother. He just like barges in and starts making new directions, and BBDB isn't able to stop him because BBDB is, as I said, a floating smiley face with arms and legs.
Yes. from there, Kenta at work, we get a few minutes of gag where, like, people are ordering food and the chef is putting up food, and then Gomtang, which is in his bag, eats the food, and then Kenta's like, where'd the food go? And then he gets fired because his boss thinks that he is eating the food. That his boss thinks that Kenta just ate a plate of raw beef.
Just so quickly.
So, yeah, just astonishingly fast. And like a head-sized bowl, like an entree for 2 serving of cold noodles. So he gets fired. And so
but
see...
The upside of this is that now Kenta knows that he and Gomtang have the same taste in food. And so now he knows what to feed him. He's like, my little growing boy. Let's go home and we can, like, eat Korean barbecue together.
Oh, man, now... Okay, this is a side effect of doing this show. I did have a very good dinner, the stew, and I'm not hungry, but I would mess up some Korean barbecue right now.
I mean, I get it. I absolutely would do that. I had the last bit of my split pea soup with some chopped up homemade baguette for dinner tonight. I would absolutely destroy some Korean barbecue.
Yeah, like, no question. So, anyways, we go home. Kenta is at his house making Korean barbecue. This does make me wonder. It turns out it's even better than I thought. At first, I think, holy cats, is Kenta, like, supposed to be half Korean or something? That would be wild for the protagonist, Red Ranger of a Japanese show in the 90s, to be Korean, incredibly progressive, great job, Super Sentai.
Right.
I don't think that's the case, because at first I thought that Kenta was in his, like, dining room with, like, a whole Korean barbecue setup. It turns out dude is just in his bedroom with his, like, personal Korean barbecue setup.
Yeah, he is an enthusiast.
Which is even better.
Who do you think likes Korean food more, Dave? Do you think that it is Kenta, or do you think it is the kimchi-loving monster from Car Ranger?
Man, that's very difficult. And at first I was tempted to say, what's that dude's name? The kimchi lover. First I was going to say the kimchi lover, because loving Korean food seems to be his only motivation and passion in life. And then I was like, whereas Kenta is a more developed care. Well, wait. This is the conversation I had in my head. Well, wait. Is he?
He also loves justice.
No, I think it's... Does he, Matt?
I mean...
Does he, Matt? Or does he keep working for Dr. Kubota because Dr. Kubota keeps buying him Korean barbecue?
Listen. Are you 80% right? Yes. But there is something else to Kenta.
There is some justice in there. Okay, so I think we got to give it to Gyuri? Was that dude's name? Anyways, he's feeding Gomtang some kalbi. He is nursing what is just so obviously a monster.
So clearly.
And he's teaching it his name. He's like, oh, my name is Kenta. And the monster's like, Kenta. Great. They go to sleep, wake up. Overnight, Gomtang has gone from, like,
there's a bit where, like, Gomtang collapses and has a fever.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And Kenta, puts an ice pack on its head. But what has happened is that overnight, he has gone through a growth spurt.
Yeah.
I guess he just needed some Korean food to set him off.
Yeah, he goes from, like, Furby-sized, as I said, to just Monster Suit-sized. But mentally, he's still a baby, which is a very weird dynamic to have entered. Also, knowing that this was the plot point of this episode, it feels like they could have picked a cuter animal as a base, because Gomtang is still a horrifying anglerfish gremlin, but now he's like 6.5 feet tall. And the expansion dimension does not do him any favors.
No.
He's real gross looking.
Yeah, and there is a moment where Kenta freaks out because there is just a monster in his room. But then Gomtang is like, Kenta? Kenta! And they like hug, and he's like, oh, you'll be my best friend forever. I'll never not... You will be in every future episode of this show because I love you so, and you are my pet and friend in like a weird Pokemon way.
Yeah. So then they immediately get a call. Oh, it's a monster.
The monster's at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, and the Rangers roll out, and there's a fish monster, and it's Anglerfish Nezire. And
Kenta, by the way,
Chisato
Kenta has shoved Gomtang in his closet and just like, you stay here. Like, he is not like mentally adjusted to the fact that he needs to have a bigger place to hide him because he's a giant monster.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
He just like pushes him in the closet. He's like, don't make a lot of noise because my mom's home.
So Kenta and Chisato see Anglerfish Nezire, and they're like, ooh, connections being made, synapses firing. They try to fight Anglerfish Nezire. Koichiro tries to blast him. Anglerfish Nezire is like a weirdly fast and agile for a monster that is based on what is effectively a stationary fish.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Guirail sort of like telepathically gets in touch with Anglerfish. He's like, stop goofing around. Do not mess with these dudes. You got to go find your brother. Anglerfish is like, oh yeah, right. So he phases out.
Now, up in the spaceship, Dr. Hinelar is like, dude, he was fighting our enemies and doing pretty well. Why did you tell him to stop? Guirail's like, listen, you don't actually know what's going on with this monster. Because it's not one monster, it is a pair of monsters. And when they are combined, they go from the anglerfish being able to turn people into stone to the...
Oh, yeah, sorry. He can... Oh, we talked about that. That's
yeah,
right. That's
the anglerfish, when he's combined with his brother, can turn people into diamonds. And I can use those diamond people to power a super laser to destroy the Earth. Which is a big jump.
Man, dude, it is a big jump, man. I'm deeply in love. I'm deeply in love with the plan. The idea that you would combine two monsters. I'm not going to reiterate everything you just said, but that's just an astonishing plan. The majesty of it, Matt. It is.
It's one of those things like it's a hat on a hat on a hat. But they're all great hats.
But they're really good hats, and they do somehow complement each other. There's a quick bit where Mom is cleaning his room, and she opens the closet, she sees the monster, and she screams and passes out, and Gomtang dips. He's like, this is terrible, and he runs away. So basically, Gomtang runs into Anglerfish Nezire. Okay, and he's like, Anglerfish Nezire says, I will absorb you. This also, weirdly, is a thing for anglerfish.
Did you just like do a bunch of anglerfish research for this episode?
No, Matt, I didn't. I just dig David Attenborough documentaries.
Okay. Well, I also know that you loathe the terrors of the deep, deep oceans. So I'm surprised that you spent this much time watching those episodes.
To say loathe means that I harbor a hatred of them, which is not accurate. I just have a deep terror of them, and I think that's slightly different. Yeah, I don't watch a ton of those episodes. I'm not sure where I picked this fact up, but male anglerfish are super tiny, and female when you think anglerfish, what you're actually thinking of is a female anglerfish, and the male anglerfish basically like swim up and attach themselves with like a weird sucker mouth to the female anglerfish, and then they just sort of like merge into the female anglerfish's body, and then that's how anglerfish procreate. So
weird.
Yup, super weird. #terrors of the deep. Anyways, I don't want to get into like the sexual dynamics of Anglerfish Nezire and Gomtang, but the idea that one anglerfish would somehow fuse to another does have some basis in reality. I do think that may also mean that Anglerfish Nezire is a lady.
All right.
Which I don't know why, but that puts a whole new weird spin on it.
You know, Lady Anglerfish Nezire doing it for themselves.
She's a strong, independent woman.
Yeah.
I was
She
about
don't need
to
no
say
man.
they don't need no man. I was about to say they don't need no man, except their entire motivation right now is to get a man
Yes,
that
okay.
is coincidentally their brother, so that doesn't quite play.
Right. Let's just skate on past that and back to this very strange episode. We're like, are we at the halfway point of this episode yet? I feel like we've been talking about this for ages.
We have been. It's a dense episode, Matt. I don't know what to tell you. Thankfully, after the next little bit, things are going to speed up pretty quickly. They sort of like get Gumtang away from Anglerfish Nezire, and then Kenta is just sitting with him, and he's like, "Here, have some food. You're hungry." And then Gumtang is like, "Oh, you're hungry too," and he realizes this, and he shares some of the food back with Kenta, and they're like, "Oh, bonding moment." And he's like, "We'll be together forever. Pinky swear." That's an important moment. And then Anglerfish Nezire arrives, and then Anglerfish Nezire is like, "That's my Nezire brother," and Kenta's like, "No, he's not." And he just so. I can't state clearly enough how very obviously Gumtang is a Nezire monster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. But Kenta is like, no, I need to prove that he is more connected to me than to you. And so he, like, goes to fight Anglerfish Nezire, but doesn't transform, as though he's trying to hide his secret identity from Gumtang. Which doesn't make any sense. But it also, like, that's literally the only reason to not transform into a superhero, to fight a monster from space.
Yeah,
So he tries to fight this space monster who looks like his new best friend. And it goes very badly for him. Like, so badly for him. Chisato arrives and brings the other ones in. Kenta and Gumtang run away. He says, "Gumtang, wait here. I will always protect you, but I gotta go do some stuff." He transforms. He runs back in. He kind of helps turn the tide of the fight until he goes to do like a jump kick, and he gets shot in the feet by the petrifying laser, and his feet turn into stone, and he falls to the ground and cannot walk with his stone feet. And this is horrifying. I don't know if it's meant to be super horrifying, but boy, that is like some bad body horror stuff.
Yeah, it is. I was a little bummed out because they were so close to a really excellent River City Ransom reference.
Dave, you know that's in my notes.
I of course it is. It really bummed me out and especially because Kenta is a punchy guy.
Right.
He's got a battle. He's a very punch-oriented hero.
Could have the stone fists.
It would have been so easy, Matt. It would have been so easy. Fun fact aside, do you know what the speedrun record is for River City Ransom? I think it's sub 10 minutes.
That is wild to me.
Yeah, it's pretty
That is
insane.
wild to me, someone who has maybe beaten River City Ransom once and has played it for hours and hours.
So, basically, Anglerfish Nezire does manage to absorb Gumtang. They do the diamond beam. There is a very cool effect where it hits like an oil barrel, and then when it fades, they have just constructed an oil barrel out of acrylic, which is a very neat effect because it looks like it kind of turned to diamond a little bit. They're about to blast Anglerfish Nezire and Gumtang together. Chisato jumps in and says, "Wait, no!" And then she says, what's her device?
Digicam scan.
Digicam. She says, "Digicam scam." And you see Anglerfish Nezire, and it identifies his weak point.
Which is his forehead. Like, yeah,
Which, A, is his
that's my
forehead.
weak point too. I mean, one of them.
Just kind of anywhere on my head in general, to be honest with you. But, like, here's the thing that's a very good point, Matt. That's not even the thing I thought about, which is can Chisato just do that? Like, is that just like an on-deck thing? She could just be like, hold up, everybody. Let me hit it with the scan to find its weak point, and just doesn't?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's busy sometimes. So they figure out the weak point. They shoot him in his forehead. This doesn't kill him, but it does, like, disrupt the power of his petrifying beam. So now Kenta's feet are regular again.
Yeah.
And that's
so
good.
Kenta sort of, like, starts walking forward, and there's a blast, and Kenta unhensions. And he's like, Gomtang, you can do it. I promised I would protect you no matter what. And then there's a flashback to 45 seconds ago where they do the pinky swear. Okay. As though it is like this foundational element of the episode. And then he gets attacked again, and he falls down, and he gets back up, and he, like, stumbles forward, and he's like, Call me Kenta one more time. Like, say that you know me. And then there's, like, a series of flashbacks, and they do get the same flashback in again.
Yes. And I want to be clear. This is a flashback to a scene that has happened on this side of the commercial break. It's not even reminding you something that happened from, like, the first half of the episode. So we get this montage, and Gomtang is able to, like, actually free himself from being absorbed into the anglerfish Nezire. And, like, he stands up and he's his own character again. And he, like, tries to go over and grab anglerfish Nezire to stop him from killing Kenta. And they're wrestling for a little bit, and he gets knocked away. And then anglerfish Nezire summons his own energy beam out of his anglerfish, like, forehead dongle.
Yeah,
and it's a cool moment for a second.
It is. It doesn't.
And then
it does not do anything.
No. Well, what it does is it makes anglerfish Nezire very mad.
Right, and then he just kind of super blasts his brother. He's like, "You're not my brother anymore," and then he super blasts him. And then there's fire everywhere, and they're really pushing the pathos of this, of the filial love between a teenager and his monster son. There's, like, fires in the background, and I gotta just say, I'm not feeling it in the opening. I normally am a sucker for anything with, like, a father-child relationship, and the fact that Gomtang is just weird and gross looking is kind of wrecking it for me. But Kenta gets down, and he's, like, cradling Gomtang, and he's like, "Let's eat yakiniku again." And there's, like, some staggered talking back and forth, and they're like,
there's a bit where, like, okay,
and
throughout the episode, and I hate to interrupt you, Dave, but I don't hate it enough to not do it, apparently. There's a bit that I noticed here that's in my notes where, like, the entire episode, Gomtang, the only word he has ever said is Kenta. And now, right at the end, he has learned how to speak full sentences just in time to have last words before he dies in fire from being lasered by his brother. This is the pivot point of this episode where it goes from, like, this is a weird, goofy episode about Kenta being dumb and there being a monster egg, to now things are serious.
Yeah, like, it's a hard shift. And then Gomtang is like, "Thank you," and they pinky swear, and then he does die, and then just kind of disintegrates. And in that moment, I did feel it a little bit.
Oh, you know when I felt it, Dave?
Okay, I
felt it immediately after that.
Well, wait, hold up. So this is great. In my notes, I just have the words "unforgivable" in all caps. And then the next line of my notes is, "I feel like a lot fewer things have been And then I pause mid-word because that's as far as I got into typing before Kenta says,
"I will not forgive you."
And I was just like, it doesn't have quite the punch of unforgivable, but you got there.
Right. So he turns to him, he gets a very intense face, he says, "I won't forgive you." And then he does the best kind of henshin, which is running at the monster while shouting running through flames, as like the sort of image of him is warped by like the heat waves of the fire. It's extremely dope. He runs in, he equips the Battle Riser, which gives him his good punches. He punches him to death immediately. And then BBPB shows up and we go into a giant fight.
This is something I never noticed about the Battle Riser, which is he always does 2 moves in succession. It's Battle Riser and Battle Punch, or Riser Chop and Riser Punch. And he like runs and does like a flying dive chop. And it like cuts away, and they use the footage they have of the dive chop. And then immediately afterwards, he does Riser Punch, which is also a flying forward punch. So what has to happen is that he has to like run forward, leap into the air, deliver Riser Punch. While the monster is staggered, he stops, like backs up 20 feet, gets another running start, and does another diving punch. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Hey,
anyway, the
Nezire, if nothing else, patient.
Yeah, which is very polite of them. They summon Galaxy Mega. It's a pretty straightforward fight, except for the fact that Anglerfish Nezire does turn his Galaxy Shield and the arm behind it into stone, which is pretty neat, and then therefore justifies them summoning Delta Mega. Now, when they combine with Delta Mega, the stone does magically reset itself.
Well, because Delta Mega destroys the anglerfish beam mechanism, and that
you know what?
I
must have been taking. Thank you. I must have been taking notes in that moment.
Yeah.
And then that's basically.
Yeah. Now,
that's
Dave,
it.
I don't think we've talked about this. How do you feel about Galaxy Mega's finishing move, where his fists come off and fly towards the enemy and punch them?
I'm torn about it, Matt, because generally speaking, I'm a big fan of fists fly off and punch you with rockets. It doesn't
quite seem
vibe
right
for me.
Right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem thematically appropriate. We gone from sword and shield and Gatling fingers to rocket fists. It feels like we should have some sort of Gatling sword or a Gatling shield or a laser sword Gatling or something.
If the fists turned into energy, if they became laser fists or if they exploded, that would be one thing. But they're just fists. They just punch real good. And did I write Super Galaxy Mega Death Punch in all caps with exclamation point in my notes? Yeah, and that was fun, but it's a weird move. Anyway, that's all about that.
Yep, that's it.
And that's it for the fight.
So that's basically it. Now he does. We've got a short scene where Kent is alone in the swings. He's very sad, and then he kind of glances over, and there's a Gomtang plush, a little plush doll at his baby form, and he picks it up, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" And Chisato pops out, and she's like, "Oh, be careful with that. It took a long time, and it was difficult to make." Which, let me just say, incredible work, Chisato.
Oh, of course.
Truly astonishing. Anyways, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. My little buddy loved Korean barbecue. A, of course he loved it. It's all you ever fed him. B, he's like, Chisato, I want to say thanks. I want to get you some Korean barbecue." And then as soon as he says that, everybody else pops up, and they're like, "Hooray! Korean barbecue for everybody on Kenta." And then Kenta's very angry. He's like, "You guys need a job." And then the episode
which
ends.
is funny, because he also doesn't have a job anymore, because he got fired earlier that day. And of course, they're just going to go to Korean barbecue at the same restaurant where Kenta just got fired, which I don't think is what you do if you get fired from a restaurant, right? If you're ever going to go back to a restaurant you get fired at, you don't do it that day. I've never worked in restaurants, but...
I was going to say, I've worked in a lot of restaurants. I've never been fired from one, so I wouldn't know. So, that's the end of this episode, Matt.
Yes, Dave, but of course it's not the end of our episode, because first we need to determine where Anglerfish Nezire lands in the Creature Royale. I do like this guy.
I do like this guy. He's got a cool vibe. I like the idea of merging with another monster, especially like you've got to hunt it down and force it to do it. That's kind of a new twist.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good comparison point for this guy, and I'm having a little bit of trouble.
There's not a lot of fish monsters is the problem.
No, but are there any monsters that have unwilling accomplices?
Yeah, not a lot of fish monsters, Matt. We do have one other monster that used a beam to turn people into a mineral, and that's Bara Gold from O-Ranger at spot number 108.
Okay, lucky number 108. I dig that. Now, the Bara Gold episode was like, this episode is weird and not bad, but the Bara Gold episode I remember being particularly good and like creepy because there was a lot of like people getting like sucked into like greed for money, and then that greed having them turn into gold, and then as it turns out, like it was originally like a golden dog statue that they were like worshiping, and then it turned into a monster and turned them all into gold and killed a bunch of people. Like that was a whole thing. This is an interesting episode about honestly, like a monster pet.
Right. Underneath that, oh, okay. You know what, man? There's no comparison in which this is going to look good because the other monster pet episodes are like Puton from Jetman, and Puton is like way up there. So as I'm looking at this list, like, dude, below that is like Purse Monk with the sweet dunks, Diamond Dimension, Nupafuofu, the weird face licker, and then Mujin, the manga artist.
Okay,
Zeri, the fashion designer.
Yeah, Breaking,
okay.
Rebuilt Breaking, Faucet Dimension. Okay, Faucet Dimension, I feel like we're getting into the right zone, right?
Yeah, now we're okay, actually, QQQton. I like him better than QQQton.
And remind the good people, Dave, which one was QQQton?
QQQton was a weird, very fast, like Sphinx monster with a monocle and like a laser lens focusing staff that went to find a necklace. So I like him better than QQQton.
Okay, yes, that was the episode where where there was like a princess who had a necklace who had come to town for a book fair, right?
Yeah, that sounds
all of this sounds made up.
Familiar. Well, the whole thing is made up, man. I mean, it's, you know.
Well, true, but it sounds like we made it up. Anyway, so you think the new 131 between Faucet Dimension and QQQton?
Yeah, that's kind of where I think he's at, Matt.
I think that's fair. Not a bad episode, and not a bad monster, to be honest, but not one that we're gonna be remembering fondly. Like, oh gosh, do you remember the pure, like the high ecstasies of the episode with Anglerfish Nezire? This is not one of those monsters I'm gonna always keep a screenshot for in the photos on my phone. The way that I'll just like never not have a picture of Noodle Dimension.
Man. Wait, Noodle Dimension or God Noodle?
God Noodle, sorry.
Dude, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you folks for listening to this, the 300th episode of the Super Sentai Brothers. This has been, in specific, another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. And before we finish up here, we'd like to remind you all that you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out the things that we are talking about on Twitter, we are on there at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. Rate, review, subscribe. That would be very sweet of you. Tell a friend. And we're in the middle of the season, but we just hit a milestone. That's a reason to tell a friend, right? Probably. Seems like it to me, anyway. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you want to catch any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.
Mega